Hi everyone, welcome back, and thanks for joining me on this relaxing drive through Sydney's beautiful northern beaches. If you've ever wondered what life is really like in places like Manly, Allambie Heights, and Curl Curl, you're in the right place. As we cruise through these stunning coastal suburbs, I'll share some stories, a bit of history, and some practical insights about living here. Things like rental prices, the local vibe, demographics, transport, schools, and what makes each area unique. So sit back, enjoy the scenery, and imagine yourself right here on these sun-drenched roads, surrounded by ocean air and gum trees swaying on the hillsides. Let's start our journey in Manly, one of Sydney's most iconic beachside suburbs, and honestly, a place that feels like a little world of its own. If you're not from Sydney, Manly sits about 17 kilometers northeast of the city center, right at the southern end of the northern beaches. It's the kind of place that immediately makes you slow down and take a breath. Golden sand, people walking barefoot with surfboards under their arms, and ferries gliding across the harbor to Circular Quay. Fun fact, the name Manly actually dates back to 1788, when Captain Arthur Phillip, the first governor of New South Wales, met the local Aboriginal people and described them as manly in their behavior. That word stuck, and here we are, more than 2 centuries later, still calling this slice of paradise Manly. Over time, it's transformed from a quiet fishing village into a thriving beach town. In the 1800s, Manly was considered the perfect Sunday destination. People would take the old steam ferries from the city just to escape the noise and breathe in that salty sea air. Today, Manly has become a mix of locals, expats, and travelers. It's lively but still laid back, full of cafes, surf shops, bars, yoga studios, and that ever-present sound of waves in the background. If you walk down the Corso, that's the main pedestrian strip connecting the ferry wharf to Manly Beach, you'll pass gelato shops, boutique stores, and people in beachwear, even in the middle of winter. It's that kind of place. Now let's talk about what it's like to live here. Manly is beautiful, but it's also expensive. The average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is well above $600 a week, and larger homes easily cross the $1,000 mark. But people pay it for the lifestyle. Where else can you start your day with a swim, catch a ferry across one of the most scenic harbors in the world, work in the city, and then be home in time for sunset on the beach? For newcomers, Manly offers a lot of convenience. You've got supermarkets, gyms, restaurants, and great public transport. The ferry is iconic, but there are also buses that connect to other parts of the northern beaches and the city. If you're a student or backpacker, you might not live directly in Manly unless you're sharing with others, but you can easily find affordable options nearby, suburbs like Balgowlah, Brookvale, or Fairlight. The community in Manly is very active. There are always weekend markets, surf comps, and outdoor fitness classes. It's the kind of suburb that encourages you to be outside, social, and part of something. And beyond the beach, there's also a strong environmental and local business culture. People here care deeply about sustainability, recycling, and keeping the beaches clean. It's a mix of local pride and that easygoing Australian energy. Now, as we move inland, leaving the coastline behind, the roads get greener, the houses a little larger, and the air a touch quieter. We're heading towards Allambie Heights, a peaceful residential suburb that sits up in the hills overlooking the beaches below. Allambie Heights is about 17 to 18 kilometers from Sydney's CBD. It's one of those suburbs that often surprises newcomers, because while it's just a short drive from Manly, it feels completely different. Here you'll find tree-lined streets, family homes with big gardens, and the sound of kookaburras in the morning. It's quieter, calmer, and more community-driven. The population sits around 7,000 people, with a median age in the early 40s, so there are plenty of families and long-term residents. Many of them have lived here for decades. In terms of demographics, most people are Australian-born, though there's also a strong mix of English, Irish, and European backgrounds. It's not as internationally transient as Manly, but it's incredibly welcoming. Allambie Heights has an interesting history too. The name Allambie comes from an Aboriginal word meaning peaceful place. And honestly, that describes it perfectly. The suburb developed mainly after World War II, growing into a close-knit residential area surrounded by bushland and open space. If you look around as we drive, you'll see homes that are mostly detached houses, no high-rise apartments here. There's space, light, and greenery everywhere. The median household income in Allambie Heights is well above the Sydney average, reflecting its middle to upper-class character. Rent here is around $600 a week, and while it's not cheap, you get a lot more room for your money compared to the beachfront suburbs. It's also a great place for families. The local public school, Allambie Heights Public, is highly rated, and there are several private schools and early learning centers nearby. For healthcare, there are local GPs and clinics, and the Northern Beaches Hospital, a major modern facility, is only about 10 minutes away. Transport-wise, buses connect residents to the city and the beaches, but most people here prefer to drive. That said, it's a short 10-minute trip to Manly or DY if you want to hit the surf or grab dinner by the water. The best way to describe Allambie Heights is balanced living. It's got the fresh air and scenery of the northern beaches without the constant buzz of tourists. It's a place where neighbors know each other, kids play in the park, and life runs at a gentler pace. And now, as we make our way back toward the coast, we reach Curl Curl, another gem of the northern beaches. Curl Curl is divided into two parts, North Curl Curl and South Curl Curl, separated by the lagoon that runs through the middle. The name Curl Curl is believed to come from an Aboriginal phrase meaning river of life, fitting, considering the natural beauty of this place. Curl Curl is home to one of the best beaches in Sydney. It's wide, uncrowded, and popular with locals who love surfing, beach walks, or just watching the waves roll in. Unlike Manly, there aren't big commercial areas here, no major shopping centers or tourist strips. It's a real locals beach. You'll find surf life-saving clubs on both ends, rock pools, and scenic walking tracks that connect to freshwater and DY. The suburb itself is small, home to just a few thousand people. It's mostly residential, with a lot of renovated homes, modern architecture, and some older cottages that have stood here for generations. Because of its coastal position and limited space, housing in Curl Curl is expensive. Rents and property prices are similar to Manly, sometimes even higher for houses with ocean views. But the payoff is incredible. Imagine waking up every morning to the sound of the ocean, walking your dog along the beach, or taking a dip in the rock pool before work. That's daily life here. Curl Curl is especially loved by families and professionals who want that quieter coastal vibe without being in the middle of tourist traffic. Schools like Curl Curl North Public are excellent, and the sense of community is strong. If you're someone who values peace, nature, and outdoor living, Curl Curl is about as good as it gets. Now let's talk a bit more broadly. What's life really like on the northern beaches for newcomers? If you're a student, backpacker, or migrant thinking about moving here, the first thing to know is that the northern beaches are safe, clean, and very community-oriented. But they're also on the pricier side of Sydney. You'll find cheaper rent if you go slightly inland. Suburbs like Brookvale, DY, Narrowena, or even Frenchs Forest offer better deals while still being just a short bus ride from the beach. Public transport is reliable, though the northern beaches don't have trains. You'll mostly rely on buses and the ferry from Manly. That said, buses here are frequent, clean, and connect you to major hubs like Chatswood and the city. Healthcare access is excellent, with the Northern Beaches Hospital as the main hub and plenty of local clinics around. Schools across the region are strong, both public and private, which is part of what attracts families to live here. Day-to-day life revolves around the outdoors. People walk, surf, cycle, kayak, and have picnics in the park. Cafes open early, and you'll notice that most people here genuinely enjoy the slower, healthier lifestyle. If you're used to the fast pace of big cities, it can take a little adjustment, but it's a refreshing change. And because of its beauty and proximity to the city, the Northern Beaches attracts a mix of people. Professionals who work in the CBD, retirees, families, and expats from all over the world who fall in love with the coastline. For international students, it's not uncommon to live in shared accommodation or homestays in this area. You'll meet people from the UK, India, China, Brazil, South Africa. It's diverse, though less so than inner Sydney suburbs. If you're planning to work while studying, hospitality jobs, retail, and delivery work are common here, especially in and around Manly. It's also a great place for people in fitness, tourism, or customer service roles. Now let's zoom out a little and reflect on what makes these three suburbs, Manly, Allambie Heights, and Curl Curl, so special together. They each have their own rhythm. Manly is vibrant, touristy, full of life and energy. Curl Curl is relaxed, authentic, and peaceful. Allambie Heights sits right in between, quiet, family-focused, surrounded by greenery, but just minutes from the ocean. Together, they represent the essence of Sydney's northern beaches, that perfect mix of natural beauty, safety, and lifestyle that so many people move here for. So whether you're driving through for the first time, or maybe dreaming about living here one day, I hope this little audio journey helps you picture what life on the northern beaches feels like. There's something special about this part of Sydney, the mix of blue water, green hills, and that unmistakable calm that comes with being close to the sea. Thanks for joining me on this drive. If you found this helpful, make sure to check out the next episodes where I'll explore more Sydney suburbs and talk about topics like the cost of living, how the healthcare system works for new migrants and students, and which suburbs are best for part-time jobs. Until next time, take care, drive safe, and keep exploring. There's always something new to discover around the next corner.
falan.